You know, life doesn't always shout its warnings. Sometimes, it just whispers. A quiet moment, a gut feeling, a look that lingers too long, these are the ways truth makes itself known. But only if we're paying attention. The older we get, the more we realize, people don't reveal themselves through words. It's their actions. Especially when they think no one's watching. That's when the mask slips. That's when character shows. Bad people don't walk around with signs on their backs. They don't wear black hats like in the old westerns. No, sometimes they're the ones holding the door open, bringing over a pie, offering to mow your lawn on a hot July day. They say all the right things, until one day, something just doesn't feel right. And by then, sometimes the damage is already done. But not this time. Today, we'll uncover 7 subtle signs, tiny red flags, that tell you exactly who someone is, long before they get close enough to hurt you. Because your peace isn't just valuable. It's sacred. So pull up a chair. Breathe deep. And listen closely. Life is speaking. 1. They manipulate with kindness. Some of the most dangerous people you'll ever meet won't raise their voice or slam a door. They'll offer you a warm smile. Hold it open. Bring over a plate of cookies when you move in. They'll call it kindness. But it's not. It's control, dressed up in good manners. There's an old saying, not all who are kind-hearted. And that's the truth. Manipulators often start with generosity. They remember your favorite pie, shovel your driveway after a snowstorm, even fix that loose gate in the backyard without being asked. You feel seen, cared for, maybe even lucky. But slowly, things shift. You say no thanks to an offer, and they go quiet. You make plans that don't include them, and suddenly they're disappointed. Before you know it, you're walking on eggshells just to keep the peace with someone who once made you feel safe. I had a neighbor like that once. Let's call him Richard. Showed up with a smile and a plate of chocolate chip cookies. Within weeks, he was offering help with everything. But when I politely declined one day, he turned cold. Started making little jabs about my lawn, my kids' noise, even our lack of neighborly spirit. That's when I realized his kindness came with a price tag. Invisible at first, but very real. The Stoics warned us about this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If someone gives to gain power, it'll show eventually. But only if we're paying attention. So here's the test. Does their kindness come with strings? Do they grow distant when they can't control the narrative? True kindness feels light. It brings freedom, not obligation. The right people give without keeping score. The wrong ones? They hand you a gift with one hand and hold a leash in the other. Don't be fooled by the wrapping. Watch what's inside. 2. They never take responsibility. Some people treat blame the way a magician treats a deck of cards, always ready to shuffle it somewhere else. At first, it seems harmless. They blame traffic for being late. Blame their boss for their bad attitude. Blame the weather, the timing, their childhood. Anything but themselves. But if you stick around long enough, you'll notice something. They're never the one at fault. I once knew a man like that. Let's call him Mike. Sharp dresser, smooth talker, always had a story. When his first marriage ended, it was because she changed. When his second fell apart, she just couldn't handle his ambition. When he lost his job, it was because his manager was jealous. Funny how every storm in his life had someone else holding the umbrella. But the truth? Mike wasn't unlucky, he was allergic to accountability. The Stoics knew this kind of man well. Seneca once said, "The first sign of wisdom is to admit one's faults." But to someone like Mike, admitting fault feels like weakness. So he points fingers, avoids apologies, and leaves others to mop up the mess. And here's the danger: if you stay close to someone like that, you'll start picking up their pieces. You'll find yourself defending them, explaining their behavior to others, making excuses on their behalf. Slowly, their lack of responsibility becomes your burden to carry. So here's your signal: watch how they handle a mistake, big or small. Do they own it? Or do they pivot and dodge like a quarterback avoiding a tackle? A good man doesn't crumble under accountability, he grows from it. But someone who always plays the victim, he'll pull you down just to stay afloat. Life's too short to carry someone else's baggage, especially when they packed it themselves. Choose to walk beside those who own their truth, not run from it. 3. They wear a mask of charm. It only takes about 7 seconds to form a first impression. And bad people, they know that. They count on it. That's why the most dangerous ones don't come storming in with anger or arrogance. They walk in with a grin, a steady handshake, and all the right words. They're the first to compliment your garden, ask about your grandkids, offer to fix that squeaky screen door. On the surface, they're just lovely. But charm, when it's used as camouflage, is one of the oldest tricks in the book. I once worked with a man named Paul. Always had a story, always had a joke, always made you feel like the most important person in the room. But one afternoon, I overheard him speaking to a waitress, rude, dismissive, like she didn't even deserve eye contact. That's when it hit me: his charm had an on-off switch. And it only stayed on when someone could offer him something. The Stoics warned us about people like this. Epictetus said, "It's not what a man says, but what he does, that reveals his character." Words can deceive. Behavior? That's where the truth lives. So here's the test: watch how they treat people they don't need. The cashier, the janitor, the waitress. If their kindness disappears when no one's looking, it was never real to begin with. True character doesn't change when the spotlight turns off. A good man is kind when no one's watching. A bad man performs when it benefits him and drops the act the moment it doesn't. Charm fades. Masks slip. But actions? They tell the story plain as day. So don't be dazzled by the 7-second sparkle. Look for what lasts after the smile fades. Because anyone can be likable for a moment. But no one can fake integrity forever. 4. They lack empathy. There's something chilling about opening up to someone, really letting them in, only to be met with silence, or worse, a shrug. When a person lacks empathy, it's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it hides behind a polite nod or a fake smile. But when you're hurting, when you need someone to simply listen, their indifference cuts deeper than any insult. I remember sitting at a family gathering once. A friend was quietly sharing how hard the past year had been, losing his wife after 42 years of marriage. You could feel the weight in the room. But the man beside him? He jumped in before the sentence was finished. "That's tough," he said, "but let me tell you about the time my truck broke down during a snowstorm in Kansas." Just like that, the moment disappeared. That's what a lack of empathy looks like. It's not always cruel, it's empty. There's no presence, no pause, no true connection. Just a need to shift the spotlight back where they think it belongs, on themselves. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle." Empathy isn't optional, it's essential. It's the heartbeat of meaningful relationships. But a person who lacks it? They'll never sit quietly with your grief. They'll minimize your pain, change the subject, or worse, make you feel guilty for even having emotions. Watch closely: when you're vulnerable, do they lean in or pull away? Do they ask how you're really doing or rush to talk about themselves? Because empathy doesn't require fixing anything. It just requires presence. A good heart shows up when it matters most. A hollow one disappears or makes you wish you had never spoken at all. Guard your heart. And give your trust only to those who can hold it with care. 5. They fear change. You can tell a lot about a person by how they react when you start to grow. Some people will cheer you on. Others? They'll try to hold you back, not out of hate, but out of fear. Fear that if you change, you might leave them behind. It doesn't always sound harsh. In fact, it often comes wrapped in concern. Why go back to school at your age, or you really think you can start over now? They'll call it practical, sensible. But underneath it all, there's something else, discomfort. I had an old friend named Ray. We played golf together every Saturday, shared holiday barbecues, swapped lawn care tips like they were state secrets. But the year I started making changes, eating healthier, cutting back on alcohol, joining a local volunteer group, Ray started acting different. Jabs here and there. Don't get all fancy on us now. Or, must be nice to have all that free time. At first, I brushed it off. But eventually, I realized my growth was shining a light on his stagnation. And it made him uneasy. The Stoics would say, everything in nature changes. To resist that is to resist life itself. And they were right. People who fear change often want things, and people, to stay the same so they don't have to confront their own inaction. When you improve, they feel exposed. So they try to keep you small, not because they don't care, but because your growth reminds them of what they've stopped reaching for. Here's the truth, you don't need anyone's permission to evolve. And you certainly don't need to shrink to keep someone else comfortable. A good friend will adjust their stride to walk beside you. A fearful one will ask you to slow down so they don't have to speed up. Grow anyway. 6. They love control. Control doesn't always look like shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes it wears a smile. It sounds like I'm just looking out for you, or I know what's best. But underneath those words is a message you were never meant to hear. I don't trust you to live your own life. I once knew a woman, sweet as pecan pie at first. Always checking in, offering advice, wanting to help with every little decision. But slowly, her concern turned into questions. Then pressure. Then guilt. If I made a choice without her input, she'd go cold. Say I wasn't being considerate. That's when I realized it wasn't care. It was control. People who crave control often start small. They might suggest who you should spend time with, how to dress, even what doctor to see. Not because they want to support you, but because they want to manage you. The Stoics warned us about this. Seneca once wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." True strength doesn't dominate, it respects. A good person walks beside you, not in front of you, pulling the leash. But the one who craves control, they don't want a partner. They want a puppet. So here's the sign. If someone's love or friendship starts to feel like a permission slip, something you have to earn or ask for, it's no longer about connection. It's about power. And power like that always comes at a cost. Your voice, your freedom, your peace. You were not put on this earth to be managed. Not at 30, not at 70, not ever. The right people will honor your independence. The wrong ones will try to rewrite your story for their comfort, not your happiness. Don't let anyone shrink your world and call it love. You've earned your freedom. Guard it with everything you've got. 7. They take pleasure in your pain. There's a certain kind of person who never claps when you win, but leans in a little closer when you fall. They may not say it out loud. They might even pretend to care. But if you pay attention, you'll notice it, in the smirk, in the silence, in the way they light up when things go wrong for you. I remember a backyard barbecue years ago. A neighbor of mine, proud as can be, had just bought a used Ford truck he'd been saving up for. Not brand new, but it was his. Later, he casually mentioned how it had stalled on I-70 in the middle of rush hour. That's when I saw it, the glint in another guest's eye, the barely hidden chuckle, the dig wrapped in a joke. Bet folks thought you were begging for gas money. It wasn't just rude, it was revealing. People like that don't want to grow with you. They want to see you down, because that's the only time they feel tall. Your struggle feeds their ego. Your setbacks give them comfort. The Stoics saw this darkness for what it is. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." A person who finds joy in your pain reveals the rot in their own soul. So how do you protect yourself? Pay attention to how they respond when life knocks you down and when it lifts you up. Do they disappear when you're doing well? Do they offer comfort or cleverly veiled criticism when you're hurting? Because true friends grieve with you, not grin behind your back. And real love doesn't need you to shrink so it can feel strong. You've been through too much in life to keep company with someone who only smiles when you suffer. You don't need applause from the crowd. But you do deserve someone who claps when you rise and kneels beside you when you fall. Conclusion. With age comes clarity and the wisdom to know that not everyone who smiles has good intentions. Life teaches us to trust actions over words and to guard our peace like the treasure it is. Surround yourself with those who uplift, not drain. Because at this point in life, protecting your spirit isn't weakness, it's wisdom. At this stage in life, peace isn't a luxury, it's sacred ground. And protecting it means learning to see people clearly, not through rose-colored glasses, but through the lens of wisdom earned over the years. The Stoics reminded us, you may not control the actions of others, but you always control who has access to your heart. So trust your gut. Set firm boundaries. And never apologize for choosing clarity over chaos. You've walked through storms, made sacrifices, carried more than most will ever understand. Your peace has been hard-won, and it's worth guarding. Let the wrong people go. Let the lessons stay. And surround yourself with those who bring light, not shadows. Because in the end, protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's how you stay strong enough to love what truly matters.